Welcome to The Turnaround Artists, a podcast about turning things around when they don't go our way. We bring on interesting guests to share personal and professional turnaround stories. I am Marisa Mitchell. I am hosting today. I'm turning the tables on Brian, and he's going to share a sports turnaround story with us. Hello, Brian.
Hey, Marisa. How you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm excited to hear about your soccer journey. I know you've only been playing soccer for about 10 years, and you had the opportunity to play a semi-pro game. Tell me about that.
Well, thanks for asking. And it's really great to be here. I love what you're doing with the show. So yeah, well, I drove out. I got the ask about 8 years into my soccer career. We're going to get into that, by a gentleman who had been watching me play for several months. And he said, I coach the Antiguan national team in the Caribbean Soccer League, which plays every weekend in Brooklyn. And I'm not Antiguan, but that team is allowed to have 2 players not from Antigua in every match.
Right. So you need more SBF than most Antiguans.
Yes. I burn easily. So he asked me and said their goaltender had been injured, and would I like to play that next weekend? So I was, humbled, anxious, didn't think I could do it. What are you talking about? And I said, how old are the players? And he said, well, they're all in their early 20s. I said, okay. Well,
and how old were you again?
55. So I went out to Brooklyn, and I was one of 2 players, non-Antiguans on the team. And they were all very, very young. They were all very, very nice. And I played a match in a semi-professional game.
Wow. And how did the game go? The big question.
It went well. Unfortunately, we lost 2-1. And I own that, because when I mentioned today what I wanted to call today's episode, it's owning the goal, right? And that's for several reasons. You're trying to teach me what entendre means.
Yes, it's a double entendre.
Well, this is like a triple entendre, if that's a thing. But we lost 2-1. And the only notable thing, I said, I do accept the loss, and I do own the loss because I let in 2 goals. But at halftime, one of our players got a red card. And for any listeners who aren't hip to soccer, red cards mean you've done something so egregious that you get thrown out of the game. So instead of playing 11 versus 11, even, you lose a player. So for an entire half, we were playing 10 versus 11. And it sounds like not a big deal, but it's a really big deal when you're missing a player. So the whole second half, it was a lot of shots, and that's when they scored 2 goals. Mm-hmm.
So you were playing at a disadvantage, but you still take responsibility for letting the goal in.
I let 2 goals in.
2 goals in.
And that's why I call it owning the goal. And with every team I play with, when a ball goes in, I was playing yesterday, every time the ball went in, I said, that was my bad. And most people come over and go, no, that was not your bad. And I said, yes, it was. I have one job. It's to keep the ball out of the net. If it goes in, it's my fault.
What a refreshing concept, taking, in this day and age, taking responsibility for one's actions.
100%.
I love it.
100%.
So let's take it back to the beginning. I really want to know, I'm really curious how soccer entered your life. And how you got from point A to point B, like not playing soccer at all to playing semi-pro.
Yeah. Well, it was a long journey with a huge gap in the middle. So I grew up in Plainview, Bethpage, and go Eagles, and on Long Island, if you don't know where that is. And soccer's huge on Long Island, soccer and lacrosse. And my high school, by the way, went on to win a state championship. I was not on that team because I started playing when I was 6, and I was heavy and I was slow. I did not come from a real athletic family, and I got bullied right out of the gate. Fatso, slowpoke, everything. So
give me their names. Take care of them.
John, Ronnie,
and addresses.
Chris, another Brian. I can actually tell you, Barry. There was a lot of them, and they actually went on to be state champions. So I guess I was slow and I was heavy. So I got bullied off the team, and within 3 games, very rare for me, I quit because I just couldn't take it anymore. So,
and then what did you do? Did you end up playing another sport?
Yeah, well, I played, and I know you were a college basketball player, so it's one of the things we bonded over is playing hoops together. So I, at that time, I actually went to church, and my church on Long Island, they had a basketball team. So I was able to play for them, and it worked me into shape. And it was like pretty low stakes.
And you actually, you called yourself a professional basketball player at that time, right?
Yes, I did. Thank you for that. Because I was the janitor at the church. So part of my responsibilities, thanks for remembering that, part of my responsibility was to clean the gym. So I had this huge mop to clean the basketball floor every time. And I would finish my job so quickly and very well. And so the last half hour, even though I was getting paid, that was my thing, where then I was practicing, and I told everyone I was a professional basketball player.
Because you were getting paid to play. I love it. I love it. And I understand you played street hockey as well.
Yeah, so that was super fun because, I wasn't very good at skating, but street hockey in my area was like pretty cool, and it was an inexpensive sport to play. So one of my best friends, Evan, who lived next door to me, and Kenny and Peter, we would get out and play 2-on-2. And, hockey's somebody's shooting and somebody's trying to keep the ball. We played with the ball, sometimes puck, out of the net. And I saw that early on. I wasn't that good outside playing, stick handling and shooting. But I had this thing where I was opposite of other people, where I actually was okay, if not enjoyed, getting in front of things and getting hit by them. And it hurt a lot of times.
That's a rare talent.
or stupidity, a combination of the two. But I learned everybody will always want you to play on their team, even if you're not that good, if you'll play goalie. And I will give a shout out to Evan because he had this shot. It was called the Whizzer. And he would grab his stick like a baseball bat. And he had this way. He could go from about 30 feet away and he could chop it. And the ball would spin backwards and it would make this whizzing sound. And it was so fast. And your mark of bravery as a goalie would be, would you stand in front of the Whizzer? Because wherever you got hit, it really hurt.
Did you get whizzed?
I got whizzed. I got whizzed a lot. You get these huge welts, and I'd go home, and my parents were like, "What's that from?" I'm like, "Oh, Evan hit me with the Whizzer again." They're like, "Why are you standing in front of the ball?" But then, of course, it led to me buying gear. I got to buy gear for everything. But I played with a baseball glove. I did get a hockey mask. I wore shin guards because I played catcher in baseball. But it had nothing to protect my upper body. So my arms and my upper body just had bruises all over them. But I kind of liked that because they were almost like tattoos of...
Like a badge of honor.
A badge of honor.
I can take the heat.
Yeah, exactly.
So you like taking the hits rather than dishing them out. What about the position did you like about being in this solo position? I remember you told me you liked being able to see the whole field or the whole scene, and from behind the scenes, sort of like when you were a drummer, you liked being in the back so that you could kind of make an impact, but not be in the spotlight.
Right. Yes. Well, you have such a great memory. Something about me couldn't handle, only certain people can be the lead singer. Only certain people can be the goal scorers, right? It's a very finite group. You have to be the best.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew I couldn't do that. So I kind of went counterculture, if you will, and said, well, I can't be the best up front. I'm not good enough to be in the middle. And that's kind of like gray because there's so many people in the middle. So, but I wanted to be a standout. So I liked being in the back. So whether it's hockey, playing goalie, and looking out, and you can just visualize, you start to get like a game hockey IQ. So you can see what's happening and you can see how the movie is unfolding. Same thing with drums. You get to be in the back. Drummers are meant to be heard, not seen. Mm-hmm. And so you're behind a wall of people that are playing in front of you. So you can kind of hide, if you will, but you have this sense of ego that's so special because I've told you before, the reason I would carry 2 bass drum pedals to every gig, and I know we're getting off topic as I usually do, but that bass drum pedal, if you play a wedding, if that bass drum pedal doesn't work, or it does work, I make everyone dance. So I am responsible for everyone who goes on that dance floor. We just came back from a wedding. That drummer was great because he made everyone dance. So the goalie, while seemingly not a center point, is the center point. No team can win without a great goalie. No band can be great if they don't have a great drummer. So you kind of don't get the accolades, but you know in your mind that you're in one of the key positions.
Really well said. As long as you know, that's what's important.
Yeah.
So you also became very in demand because not a lot of people wanted to play that position, and it was a road less traveled. Let's fast forward to later in your life. You hadn't played soccer since you were 6 years old, and you were bullied off the team, and then you get reintroduced to soccer when you're in your mid-40s. How did that happen?
Yeah, so I have 2 amazing kids, and I wanted them soccer. I lived in New York City at this point. I did not touch a soccer ball from 6 years old till I was coaching my kids' team, my daughter's team first. So first I just went as a parent, and I always like to be in some kind of leadership position or a coaching position. I really enjoy that. And even though I knew absolutely nothing about soccer, I said I can just mentor these kids. I mean, I think when she started playing, she was 5 or 6. So it was just a great way to spend more time with her and my son in a very special environment. And, any sort of team, this from your college basketball days, becomes a community, right? You travel together, you take wins together, you take losses together. So I noticed if you could build even young children into this community where it's like the sum of the whole is that the right thing? Is greater.
The whole is greater than the sum.
Greater than the parts.
Than
all the parts. That, they didn't even have goalies then. It was just like they run and shoot into little goals and whatnot. So I started to kick a ball around with the kids and started to learn the game because you had to learn the rules and you had to go to like classes at night to understand what soccer was all about. So all of a sudden I started to be like, this is pretty cool. And I'll actually give a shout out to the New York Red Bulls because the New York Red Bulls engaged with West Side Soccer League. It's called WSSL, which is a huge organization on the Upper West Side of Manhattan. And the Red Bulls would send their trainers almost every weekend to help coach the kids. So I started watching what the coaches were doing, learning from them, and then kicking balls around with them. So it started there.
It's great that through your kids, you got exposed to a new passion. I remember when my kids were learning piano and I took piano lessons. And it was a good example for them to see a parent starting something new and making themselves vulnerable and teaching them that it's okay to not be good at something because you have to start somewhere.
Yeah. And I also remember you telling me the story talk about the bonding, right? you said some of your fondest memories of with your dad. Was he just spent hours and hours and hours with you and from your house shooting baskets?
Yeah.
Right, which is how you got to be such a great shooter.
Yeah, it's a wonderful way for parents to bond with their children. I coached my daughter's basketball team, so
I'll always ask you, can you dunk?
I'm a 5'10".
So there's lots of 5'10" people who can dunk. I know you played also on your in your neighborhood. And you're probably better than all the men.
I'm not holding out on you. We played 1-on-1 enough for you to know that I can't. Outside jumper is my forte.
You got a really good shot. All those thousands of shots you took with your dad were amazing.
Okay, so you started coaching your kids, and when did you start playing in games and why?
Yeah. Well, it's sort of a bittersweet transition. So at the end of each season, Westside Soccer League does a parents' game. And all the coaches and any parents, the referees, anybody's involved with Westside Soccer, like 2 weekends, Saturday, Sunday, they play like 3 games a day. And all the parents come out. It is like, what do they say? Like with skiing, it's a knee doctor's knee surgeon's dream, because at least one person goes down with an ACL injury every single game because everybody's like the weekend warrior.
Oh, I know. I used to play pickup with dads in my neighborhood, and nobody would warm up. It would be 8 a.m. on a Sunday morning. Nobody warmed up. Nobody stretched. People fouling left and right. It was a disaster waiting to happen.
and you told me, why did you leave that league?
That's why, because I didn't want to be out of commission. I had a lot of responsibilities.
Right. But
it was too risky, but I enjoyed it while it lasted.
Kudos to you for more than holding your own against a bunch of men who probably think they're great until they start watching you shoot. So the bittersweet transition was I started getting really into, as my kids got older, then they started to need goaltenders. And all of a sudden the light went off in my head. Like no one was teaching, in my daughter's league, the young girls, then in my son's league, the young boys, like how to play goalie. Everyone just wanted to score.
Mm-hmm.
You watch the kids, it's like...
everyone wants the glory, right?
Everyone wants the glory. You've ever seen little kids play soccer, the ball goes and no one stays in a position. They just all like flourish around the ball. So if you could teach a kid to play goalie, you could show them. Now, Nora, my daughter did not want to play. My son became quite a good goaltender. I'd like to say under my tutelage and whatnot, because all of a sudden they kind of got this acumen for like, So when I went to a Westside Soccer League game, I did play goalie and I did okay, and that was really the first time I played there. But the bittersweet transition is, unfortunately, in 2014, start the process of getting separated and getting divorced.
Mm-hmm.
And you go from knowing what you're doing every weekend,
mm-hmm.
right? When you're in a nuclear family, I guess they call it. You've got this plan, you've got that plan, you've got this plan. Maybe the mom's taking the kids here, you're taking the kids here, but every weekend is spoken for joyfully, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like it's something you want to be a part of. So when you get separated or get divorced, our listeners probably know, all of a sudden every other weekend, because we had
joint custody.
So every other weekend I had my kids, and every other weekend I didn't have my kids. So all of a sudden on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and I'd moved out, so I'm living alone, I got nothing to do, like nothing. I wasn't playing in the band anymore. So it was empty. You look at your calendar, like visually, and go, it's just blank.
Right,
used to have all these things.
Yeah.
We're going here, we're going
I remember
there.
when I first got separated, Saturday nights were particularly tough. I have nothing to do. I have no one. All my friends are married and doing their own thing. I have no one. It was rough. So you were trying to fill the empty space.
Yeah. And around here, when people ask me now, they're like, "You play soccer in New York City?" And I let them know. And have you seen? Because you live a block away. right? You can walk 2 blocks here and you bump into a soccer field. It's unbelievable. And we're so blessed with, shout out to the New York City Parks Department, because the fields they have, especially in this area, so many and such good quality. They're just everywhere. And many of these where I'd taken my children where their games were. But I'll get back to this one in a second. But there was one notable one, because it's a really interesting point, because this is going to be a full circle moment. When we had just moved up here to the Upper West Side, my kids were old enough one day. I remember this is pre-divorce, taking them on this walk. And we went down right near where we both are, Riverside, and we dropped into the park is in layers until it hits the Hudson River. So I remember being on this one layer of the park, and it was the part that looked down on the soccer fields. And there was a soccer field at 107 in what they would say Riverside Drive. And it's professional size. It's huge. And when it's set up the long way, it's 11v11. And I remember looking with my kids, and it was like you thought Lionel Messi is going to be out there and play. Like, it was mind blowing, where I said,
kudos to New York City Parks.
Wow. Like, I wonder how those guys get to play. They must be so good, because they look like professionals out there. And it was daunting. Like, maybe I wasn't even thinking maybe someday I'll be out there, because I was just coaching my kids at that point. So that was particularly notable. But getting to the answer to your question is, I literally was wandering around on a Saturday, just scratching my head going, what's going on in my life? What am I going to do today? And I walked past this park, this field is on it's called Frederick Douglass. It's connected to Frederick Douglass School. And I saw all these people playing 8 o'clock in the morning, and they either had red or white shirts on. And it was just, so I stood outside the gate, interestingly, and I just watched. And I said, wow, there's every race, color, creed, and religion in there. Melting pot of what the world should be like, right? Of all people playing together. And that became a very consistent thing of community in so many years of doing this, where I've honestly said to so many people, I wish the soccer fields up here were representative of life.
Right.
Because it doesn't matter who you are. You come to that soccer field, and you're an equal,
right?
And that's the way things should be, right?
Exactly.
And I stood outside the fence and finally got enough guts, and I walked inside, and I walked up to one guy and I said, what's going on here? And he said, oh, we're just playing in the league. I said, well, how do you get in the league? He said, well, there's this app, it's called Meetup, and you just sign up and you put what you're interested in, and then it tells you where the games are. Oh, okay. So I sat and watched. There was 4 hours of games Saturday morning. And then I said, I want to try this tomorrow. So just like you, I'm very direct. I went home, downloaded the app, put my passions in, and I saw there would be games tomorrow. So I signed up.
Good for you. So how did you end up as being a goalkeeper? Did you just walk on and say, I want to be the goalkeeper? Or what was there a discovery process?
Well, I didn't know how it worked, and I wasn't a good goalkeeper yet. So these kids were playing at a high level, like pretty high, really fast, really smart. The shots were hard and whatnot. But the way it is a 7 versus 7 on a small field. And the way they do it is every 7 minutes, it's an hour game. Every 7 minutes, someone has to play goalie. Because the thing in soccer is no one wants to play goalie. Because again, take it back to street hockey. No one wants to stand in the way of the ball coming. Because as you've seen some of the injuries that I've had alone, and I had many before you, I'll note those later.
Yeah.
You got to get hit.
Yeah, I do worry. For me, it's a win when you come back from a soccer match and you don't have a concussion. I don't care what the score is.
Yeah. So the first round, I'll never forget. I remember some of the players I was playing with. So I go out and I'm a field player, right? That just means you're not a goalie. And, they take everybody on. And again, I almost saw my 6-year-old self, right? In much better shape than I was then, but I hadn't really kicked a ball except for with my kids. So all of a sudden the game starts and it's total chaos. Every time the ball comes to me, I just kicked it out of bounds or just did something silly with it, right? And people can tell, like, what's this guy doing out here? But he's big. So, they kind of didn't like that because they thought I was going to hurt someone because I was, I'm one of the biggest people out there. And I'm still slow. I can't dribble. But then what happens, the magic that happened that day, it was on a Sunday at 8:00 because I signed up, never wanting to do things. It's drinking from a fire hose. I signed up for 4 games, 4 hours on a Sunday, my first day playing. And all of a sudden, so it's my turn to play goalie. So I go in goalie. I don't have gloves. I don't have anything. Bare hands. And people are shooting. There's balls going in the net left and right.
There were a lot of whizzers.
There were a lot of whizzers. Good memory. There's a lot of whizzers. I'm getting hit. But I did not get out of the way of one ball that was hit at me. I just stood my ground. So all of a sudden, even though I wasn't very good at all, but I started to make saves, and everyone on the team would go, "Great save, Brian. Wow, that was a great save. Great save." So it was the first positive feedback I got in a long time. I'm hurting from getting divorced, obviously. And people are going, "Great save, great save. Wow, that was great. That was great." Meanwhile, like 2 fingers are broken. I've been hit twice in the face and my head's spinning. All this stuff is going on. But then it came time. There was this magical moment. Then it came time. It was 7 minutes in, and the person who organizes blows a whistle. He's like, "Change." And the guy who was coming in, he didn't want to. And I said, "Well, could I stay here?" And all the other players were around, and they went, "Yeah, you like this?" And I'm like, "I love this." And I'm like, I'm terrible at this point. And they just said, "You want to stay the whole game?" And I said, "Yeah, I'll play goalie the whole game." And they were like, "Okay." So the game goes on. We finished the game. We got killed because I was probably a terrible goalie. And I certainly was a terrible goalie. And when we went to the next game, I started the second game and I said, "Can I play goalie the whole game?" And you just saw these bright smiles, whatever. Fast forward to the end of 4 hours, brutality. I think I laid in bed for 2 days after that. Didn't go to work, bruises everywhere, had Advil hooked up to my veins. And they came to me at the end of that 4 hours and they said, "Are you going to sign up next week?" Yeah, I have another league. I'm on a team on Friday nights here. Hey, do you want to play at Pier 40? We have a team that plays there. So I just became popular. People took my number. They wanted me to play goalie because not because I was good, because no one else wants to do it.
Exactly. What a great lesson. Yeah. You take a job nobody else wants to do, stay in it until you get better. Great way to get your foot in the door. And so you ended up playing a lot. And that had other benefits for you because it kept you healthy in other ways, correct?
Yes. So when you're going through a divorce, your mind's all over the place, right? And I think left to your own, at least I can state for myself, left to your own devices, you can do things that aren't positive for yourself, right? And, I had said in our Wheels of Fortune episode that when a girl broke up with me, my friend said, "You can either go to the bar or you can go to the gym." And I had that flash going in my head. And I said, well, I can either go to the soccer field tomorrow morning or it's Friday night. There's a game over on 120th and 3rd. I can go there till it's dark. And I said, well, if I go there, I'll play soccer and I'll drink water. I won't do anything because I got to be sharp right on the goalie. And then I'm going to got to play for 4 hours tomorrow. So I'm going to go home from that game and I'm going to go to bed. And I'm going to wake up early and I'm going to go to the 4 hours and I'm going to go home and I'm going to rest. So, probably 20 hours a week I started playing. And and every one of those fields and matches and teams was a community.
Yeah, and community is a theme across many of our episodes. especially after all of a sudden you lose a community, you lose a home, how important it is to regain that. And sports is a wonderful source of community. So how long did it take until you advanced to the next level in the New York City soccer league world?
So, yeah, as I know, our listeners probably are like, all right, let's wrap up here. It took the direct answer to that question. So I finally found the ultimate community, and I'm going to get there, which is one team, and that's pretty much exclusively who I play for now, affectionately known as the Geezers. The Geezer logo is an old man with a hat and a cane kicking a soccer ball. That is our crest. It's called Geezer FC, Geezer Football Club.
I love that. Like, way to co-opt like a potentially derogatory term, and you own it.
Yeah.
Just like you own the goal.
You own the goal.
You own your age.
The Geezers own their age, and I'm going to highlight the Geezers in a second. But it took 8 years, and I am going to note, because I'm so proud of this, in those 8 years, injuries, you talk about, I've been injured the least since I've been with you. So maybe I think a little bit more and get smarter, because when I was alone, I didn't care, right? It was just, I'll do anything. Now, thankfully, I have someone to come home to, and I don't want to get injured. So in that 8 years, I've torn my MCL when a silly person just slammed into my knee for no reason. I had 10 concussions that I know about from slamming my head on the turf, being hit in the face. And I've got hit in the face so much. I know I used to be handsome before I started playing soccer. Probably.
You still are.
Thank you. 5 broken fingers. These are the ones I know about. Deep bruises across my body, strained shoulders because we're always diving. Mm-hmm. And the list goes on and on and on and on. But I love it so much. I don't care.
It makes me feel good, because I know if somebody attacks me in the street, I'm really going to be protected.
There is nothing I won't undergo. So it was during that 8 years. I mean, the MCL tear, I was on crutches. I was out for a year. And I just knew I'm just going to rehab myself, and I'm going to get back on that field. I was really upset with the person who did it, because it was unnecessary. But it's training. It's having a purpose. It's why you work out. It's just, how can I get myself in top shape? It took 8 years. I started taking lessons with a gentleman very kindly, Buna, who was a former Red Bulls goalie, and he still holds the MLS, Major League Soccer record for the lowest goals against average, under 1 for an entire season, which is unheard of. He trained me. He was the one who trained me to get to play for that Caribbean League team. Mm-hmm. So we took lessons with him together. So I trained with him and was doing all that. And one of the parents of my son's team, Juan, big shout out to you. He said to me one day, I play in this league every Wednesday morning, Friday morning, and Sunday morning on 107th.
Well, the same field you admired many, many years prior.
Yeah. And I said, okay. And he said, we always need goaltenders. And I think you're good enough to come down. And again, it was like the Caribbean League team. Like, I heard about you guys. And my friend Juan is really good. And I said, I don't know that I'm at that level yet. I'm just playing these pickup games. And, mind you, gear-wise, as you've seen my closet, I think I have 100 soccer jerseys, 40 pairs of gloves. It's become an art installation, 5 pairs of shoes, anything I can get, any reason I have to get passionate about something.
And they're all different. They're all different, very bright colors. And that's another thing that drew you to being goalie, right? You can stand out. You always like to stand out.
You always like to stand out. Yeah. Because in soccer, how, thank you for dressing me. I'm like your doll, you say sometimes. You're like, wow, they can put the clothes on the doll.
You have free reign on the soccer field, but when we go to a wedding, it's my responsibility to dress you.
Yes. And I think I looked pretty good last weekend, right?
You did.
Thank you for that, because you helped me.
Very debonair.
But in soccer, one of the coolest things was I started watching professional soccer. And the point is each team's a color. the goalies have to be different colors. So I looked at that always, also like cycling, right? In cycling and soccer, I say to everyone, fashion goes out the window. I can be whatever I want to be, and you just own it, right?
I've never seen a man look so masculine in pink before.
Hot pink, shorts, socks, shirt. And some people do a double take, and when they see you come, because they're like, the geezers, as it turned out, I wear a different outfit every game, and they can't believe it. They're like, wow. And I have rationalized in my head that I'm going to be so distracting that when a shooter looks at me, they're like, what is this giant pink man doing that's running at me? So I love that about it, because I just get to be silly.
Yeah. They're like, very scary, but yet feminine. I'm confused. Whoops. I just kicked it out of bounds.
That's what I'm hoping for. Sometimes you feel like, oh, I can hit this target. So they just shoot it right at you, which you hope, but sometimes it hurts. But to wind this down, so I show up to a Geezers game, and I am shaking like a leaf. And I'm watching these guys warm up. And first off, it's called the Geezers, but there's a lot of 30-somethings running around out there. And not only is a lot of 30-somethings, there's ex-pro players, there's ex-D1 guys, ex-D2, some women, D1, amazing, like could play the lights out of any guy that was there, like really, really, really good players. And then there's like a lot of, everyone is above average, well above average, and everyone has great soccer IQ. So they know everything about soccer, and they've been doing this for decades. This is a thing. So that's intimidating. I still don't even know the rules yet. So
you fake it well.
I really fake it. But what I will say is talk about the ultimate community. And I'm like, if my listeners could see, I'm holding my hands to my heart right now, because they welcomed me. They were nice to me, with an asterisk, because on the soccer field, it's pretty intense. You played with men.
I've seen it.
You've seen it, and when you played with men in basketball, they get a little crazy, right? Yelling, and sometimes people like get a little out of their who they are. So
there's like license to be a little more aggressive, and some people take advantage.
Yes,
whereas others are more
yes. And it's a big field. Gentlemanly, but it's a big field. So if you need to get someone's attention or yell out, push out a direction, right, you're not going to say it quietly.
Right.
And part of the goalie's job is you got to scream. And you're not screaming in a way that's violent or aggressive. You're screaming for projection purposes. But I wasn't aware of that, because I had played on small fields. So all of a sudden, first off, a lot of people are telling me, it's really quiet out here. You need to talk more. So even Boona taught me one time, I think you were there. So he's like, you got to tell that guy to mark that guy over there. And I was like, hey, John, mark that guy. And he's like, no, it's, hey, John, mark that guy. I can't even say it in your apartment because your neighbors would bug us.
I just can't imagine you being unwilling to talk. This is news to me.
As the comedian said,
I just have to surround you with like 10 angry men to get you to stop talking.
Well, as the comedian said the other night, the amazing female comedian you saw, she said that my husband's a real
right?
talker.
Sometimes I come home and I think, did I leave a podcast on? And I could totally relate. In fact, that's why we started the podcast, so that you could talk to, you have an outlet for all your chatter.
And you said after you stopped belly laughing, you said it hasn't worked. I probably even talk more now. But to accelerate, the Geezers welcomed me. They taught me. They helped me. They went out of their way to accept me. They helped me grow. There's one gentleman you met at Super Nice Pizza the other night. Shout out to Super Nice Donuts and Super Nice Pizza. Please go there on the Upper West Side, 108th in Amsterdam. Mm-hmm. Also, there's a West Side and East Side Super Nice Donuts. Mm-hmm. Shout
Delicious.
Out to Dan. Yeah. But like, for example, there's one guy who comes to every game and he gives me a tip before the game because he tells me, I was thinking about you and what tip I was going to offer you this morning. And he offers me a tip, and it changes the way I play, and I play so much better. And at the end of the game, we do an analysis of how I played. And he's my coach. He says, what do you think you did good? What do you think you did bad? So you have to play the rules of getting on to be a geezer. You have to play for a year, and you have to play about 30, 40 matches. So I'm going to do this. I got to the field early. I pushed the goals. I get everything going. So after a year, I got the note, you have to go to other geezers to sponsor you. And I asked them, chased them down, and several others sponsor me. And I finally got the note from the president of the geezers, Ivan, who's amazing. And he called me and he said, you finally made it, kid. This weekend, we're going to announce that you're a geezer. So that took a long time, and I will forever thank those guys on my team.
What a great turnaround story. And just like your soccer teammate, at the end of the episode, we evaluate what happened with your turnaround, and we think about the one thing we want to provide our listeners. What most enabled this turnaround?
Well, a funny anecdote is every guest we ask, what's the one thing? And they go and babble on about 5 things.
And they say, well, it's 3 things, actually. No, we got to wrap it up.
One thing, because the listeners have given us their time. But to answer you, Marisa, it is the one thing I can tell people is when you find something you're passionate about is just go all in and be willing to take risks that you didn't think you could take, and honestly not care what other people say or what other people think unless they're helping you, right? But if they're down on you and whatnot, you don't care. And rise up to be a leader and a lifelong learner and a big asset to that community, and that will be a community for the rest of your life.
Beautifully said. Thank you so much, Brian. And I will watch you on the soccer field soon.
Thank you so much, Marisa, for having me.
Thank you for listening to The Turnaround Artists. We hope you got some helpful insights into how to make a tough situation better. If you have a turnaround story you'd like to share with us, send an email to hello@theturnaroundartist.org. Tune in next week and be sure to follow and like us on your favorite podcast platform. In the meantime, keep turning things around.